The sounds of the Chinese language resounded in a Harare classroom.
It's impressive stuff. These students are just some of the hundreds of young Zimbabweans who have started to learn the Chinese language. Now, of course, it's a wonderful way to bridge cultural divides, but in a country with growing trade and investment links with China, it's also being looked at as an important career skill.
我叫苏娜，我是2018年毕业了，在津巴布韦大学孔子学院。
Standard Mandarin is studied by tens of millions of learners around the world. But here in Africa, it's almost always taught through a colonial intermediary language, like English or French. Few teaching materials exist in indigenous African languages, like Shona, the Bantu mother tongue of roughly 80% of Zimbabweans. It's a struggle that Professor Herbert Mushangwe, the first Zimbabwean to hold a doctorate degree in Chinese language education, knows well.
When I was learning Chinese in China, everyone was picking up their own dictionary, their opening, and they're checking words in their mother tongue. But I didn't have. So I started wondering, like, why? Why is that we don't have from Africa? This is when I started compiling the Shona-Chinese dictionary, which we now have.
The dictionary was the first publication of its kind. Alongside a raft of other texts, it's become a major learning tool for Professor Mushangwe and his students.
At first it was kind of hard, I won't lie about that. It was really, really hard because it's a whole new dialect. Learning it in Shona, it just made me understand it more because there are some things that cannot really be explained in English, but when you explain them in Shona, you have to get what is trying to be said, like, okay, now I get it.
Some other countries actually learn English in order for them to learn Chinese. For us, it's actually optional. Being a Shona speaker, Chinese is actually very easy to articulate.
So look at this. This is one of the characters called Ru, which means to enter. Then I draw a heart, which is known to my people. So I use our own heart and say, if somebody wants to enter, this is because the door is small, you have to go like this. And that is the word Ru. It becomes so clear to the student. They like it because it's familiar to them.
I believe some of the phonetics that the Chinese language have is accurately translated in Shona. Things like when you want to ask a question, Nichila ma. In Shona, we actually use that final syllable ma at the end. We actually have a correct and the exact one in Shona, which is here. Wajga here, that's in Shona. So it's like the exact transliteration of the question mark. So in English, we don't have that. So to me, that's quite interesting, and I'm actually proud to be a Shona speaker, so I could actually benefit from that.
Let me take an example. Dangao bei mama chila. Keke rajgiwa na mai. The cake was eaten by mom. When you try and explain it in English, it really vexes with your mind, but then it makes more sense when it's being explained in Shona.
There are currently 15 schools in Zimbabwe where Chinese is taught, with scores of learners graduating at the university level each year. Plans are afoot to develop additional materials in minority languages, like Ndebele.
You know, when English was introduced, you would realize that it was more of force. You must do it, or else your life is damned. That was how it came. If you don't have O-level English, then you will not get a job. If you don't have English, then you cannot get into an office job because you will not be able to speak to the employer. You know, at that time, who was the ruler? The employer was the ruler, of which now we are the rulers, and we opt for the languages we think the benefit. Bringing in the aspect of Shona is to decolonize this mindset, or to ensure that our learners, they have a new attitude towards the language. We're creating a foundation to the teaching of Chinese in Zimbabwe and in Africa at large.
It's a foundation that's given rise to some unexpected outcomes, with Zimbabwe residents from both sides of the linguistic divide making use of the tools.
The people who are actually buying this book more are Chinese people. In 2016, I taught 28 people, Chinese people. They said we want to learn Shona. So teaching them at 9, and the local people didn't know until one day they found, wow, these Chinese can understand us.
The hope is that with greater mutual understanding, the cultural connection between China and Zimbabwe will be firmer and more fruitful as well. Daniel Plafker in Harare, Zimbabwe for CGTN.